The strength to say, "No, my name is Grace Martinez, and at 68 years old, I discovered that setting boundaries with the people you love isn't cruel. It's essential." This is the story of how I learned to protect my financial security while teaching my family the true meaning of respect and independence. The morning that changed everything started like any other Tuesday. I was tending to my rose garden when my phone rang with a call that would test every lesson I'd learned about love, money, and family relationships. "Mom, we have an emergency." My daughter Lisa's voice was strained with panic. "The bank is threatening to foreclose on our house. We need $15,000 by Friday or we'll lose everything." My heart immediately went out to her. Lisa and her husband Tom had been struggling since he lost his job 6 months ago. They had 2 young children, and the thought of them losing their home made my stomach clench with worry. $15,000. "Lisa, that's a lot of money. What happened to your savings?" "Mom, we used everything trying to keep up with the mortgage payments. Tom's unemployment barely covers our basic expenses. We've already sold his car and most of our furniture. This is our last chance." I sat down heavily on my garden bench. As a retired nurse with a modest pension and some savings I'd carefully accumulated over 30 years, I had the money. But something in my gut told me to pause before making such a significant decision. "Can you come over so we can discuss this in person? I want to understand the full situation." "Mom, there's no time for long discussions. The bank deadline is Friday. Can you just wire the money today?" The urgency in her voice made me uncomfortable. In my 43 years as a nurse, I'd learned to trust my instincts about people and situations. Something felt rushed about this request. "Lisa, I love you and I want to help, but $15,000 requires careful consideration. Come over this afternoon with Tom and all the paperwork. We'll figure this out together." There was a pause. "Fine, but I hope you understand how serious this is." After hanging up, I called my longtime friend Martha, who had experience helping families navigate financial crises through her work at the Community Assistance Center. "Grace, I'm glad you're taking time to think this through," Martha said when I explained the situation. "Emergency requests for large sums often reveal deeper financial problems that money alone can't solve." "But Martha, they could lose their house. Those are my grandchildren we're talking about. And that's exactly why you need to help them in the right way. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is ask the hard questions and insist on real solutions, not just quick fixes." That afternoon, Lisa and Tom arrived at my house with folders of financial documents. As we spread the papers across my dining table, a troubling picture emerged. The foreclosure notice was real, but it wasn't their first financial crisis. Over the past 2 years, they had accumulated significant credit card debt, taken out multiple personal loans, and even borrowed against Tom's 401k retirement fund. "Lisa, according to these statements, even if I give you the $15,000 for the mortgage, you still owe over $30,000 in other debts. How will you manage those payments?" Tom shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "We'll figure it out once we save the house. Maybe I'll find a better job or we'll sell some more things." "What things?" "You've already sold your car and furniture. What's your actual plan for managing these debts?" Lisa looked frustrated. "Mom, we don't need a lecture about financial planning right now. We need help saving our home." I leaned back in my chair, feeling the weight of the decision. "I want to help you, but I need to understand how this happened and what you're going to do differently going forward." The conversation that followed was difficult but necessary. Tom admitted that he had been struggling with anxiety about his job loss and had been avoiding dealing with their finances. Lisa revealed that she had been using credit cards to maintain their previous lifestyle, hoping Tom would find new employment quickly. "We made mistakes," Lisa said, tears in her eyes. "But we can't change the past. We just need help getting through this crisis." I felt my heart breaking for my daughter, but I also recognized that simply giving them money wouldn't address the underlying issues that had created this situation. "I'm willing to help, but not the way you're asking. Instead of giving you $15,000 outright, I want to propose something different." Both Lisa and Tom looked at me with hope and apprehension. "I'll lend you the money for the mortgage, but with conditions. First, you both need to meet with a credit counselor to create a realistic plan for managing all your debts. Second, Tom needs to accept any reasonable job offer while continuing to look for better opportunities. Third, You need to create and stick to a strict budget that doesn't rely on credit cards. Mom, we don't have time for all that, Lisa protested. The foreclosure deadline is Friday. Then we need to call the bank and negotiate an extension. Most lenders prefer to work with borrowers rather than foreclose. I'll help you make those calls, and I'll even speak with them directly about my willingness to provide assistance. Tom looked skeptical. What if they won't give us more time? Then we'll explore other options. But Lisa, I'm not going to enable financial habits that will put you in the same situation again in 6 months. The word enable hung in the air like a challenge. Lisa's face flushed with anger. Enable. Mom, we're not drug addicts. We're a family going through a hard time. And I love you. Which is why I want to help you build real stability, not just postpone the next crisis. Martha had warned me that setting financial boundaries with family members often triggers strong emotional reactions. People who are used to receiving help without conditions sometimes interpret boundaries as rejection or lack of love. Over the next 3 days, I spent hours on the phone with Lisa and Tom, helping them negotiate with their mortgage lender. The bank agreed to a 3-month extension in exchange for a detailed financial rehabilitation plan and proof of family support. During those same 3 days, I also researched credit counseling services, job placement agencies, and budgeting resources. I wasn't just offering money. I was offering a comprehensive support system. The turning point came when Tom attended his first meeting with a credit counselor. For the first time, he saw their complete financial picture laid out by an objective professional. Grace, he called me that evening, his voice shaky with emotion. I had no idea how bad things really were. The counselor showed me that even with your loan, we were heading for bankruptcy within a year if we didn't make major changes. What did she recommend? A complete financial restructuring. We need to downsize our housing, consolidate our debts, and both of us need to work. It's going to be hard, but it's the only way to actually solve this problem instead of just delaying it. Lisa was initially resistant to the counselor's recommendations, especially the suggestion that they sell their house and move to a smaller apartment. But as she learned more about their true financial situation, she began to understand that downsizing was their path to stability, not failure. Mom, I'm sorry I got angry when you wouldn't just give us the money, she said during one of our evening phone calls. I thought you were being mean, but you were being smart. I wasn't being mean or smart, honey. I was being loving in a way that might help you build a stronger future. Instead of lending them $15,000 to save a house they couldn't afford, I ended up helping them in different ways. I provided $3,000 for moving expenses when they found a suitable apartment. I paid for Tom to take a certification course that helped him get a better job. I covered the children's school supplies and some clothing as they adjusted to their new budget. Most importantly, I connected them with resources and people who could provide ongoing support. The credit counselor became someone they met with monthly. Tom joined a job seeker support group that helped him network and build confidence. Lisa found a part-time remote job that allowed her to contribute income while caring for the children. 6 months later, Lisa called me with excitement in her voice. Mom, I have news. We paid off 2 of our credit cards, Tom got a promotion, and we're actually saving money each month. How do you feel about the apartment? You know what? The kids love it. They have friends in the building, and we're all spending more time together because there's less space to spread out. It feels more like a home than the house ever did. The experience taught our entire family valuable lessons about the difference between helping and enabling, between short-term relief and long-term solutions. But my education in financial boundaries wasn't finished. 3 months later, I faced a different challenge with my son Michael. Michael had always been the responsible one. Steady job, nice house, seemingly stable finances. So when he asked to borrow $5,000 for a fantastic investment opportunity, I was initially inclined to trust his judgment. Mom, my friend Dave has this opportunity to buy into a food truck business. It's practically guaranteed to double our money within 6 months. The phrase practically guaranteed triggered the same internal warning system that had served me well with Lisa's situation. Michael, tell me more about this investment. What kind of research have you done? Dave has all the details. He's already invested his own money, and he's looking for partners. The location is perfect, the food concept is unique, and the profit projections look amazing. I had learned to pay attention to vague language and secondhand information. when it came to financial decisions. I'd like to meet Dave and review the actual business plan before making any decision. Michael seemed surprised by my request. Mom, Dave is a friend. You don't need to interrogate him like he's a criminal. I'm not interrogating anyone. I'm being responsible with my money, which is what you should expect me to do. The meeting with Dave revealed what I suspected. The investment opportunity was poorly researched. The business plan was full of optimistic assumptions without realistic market analysis, and the financial projections were based more on hope than experience. Michael, I'm not going to invest in this business, and I strongly recommend that you don't either. But Mom, this could be my chance to build real wealth. My job is stable, but I'll never get rich working for someone else. Getting rich quickly isn't a realistic financial strategy. Building wealth slowly and steadily is. Michael was disappointed, but unlike Lisa's initial reaction, he seemed to understand that my decision came from experience and concern rather than stinginess. 6 months later, the food truck business failed, and Dave lost the money he had invested. Michael thanked me for protecting him from a significant financial loss. I was caught up in the excitement of a get-rich-quick scheme, he admitted. I'm glad you kept me grounded. These experiences with my children taught me that financial boundaries aren't about withholding love or support. They're about providing the right kind of help that actually solves problems, rather than postponing them. I also learned that my role as a mother evolved as my children became adults. Instead of protecting them from all financial consequences, my job became teaching them to make sound financial decisions and supporting them in ways that built their independence rather than their dependence. The lessons extended beyond my immediate family. Word spread through our community about my approach to financial assistance, and I began receiving requests for advice from other parents and grandparents facing similar situations, Martha. And I started an informal support group for older adults navigating financial requests from family members. We met monthly at the community center, sharing experiences and strategies for helping loved ones without enabling destructive patterns. The hardest part, said Robert, a 72-year-old grandfather, is distinguishing between a genuine emergency and poor financial planning. My daughter seems to have a new crisis every few months. That's exactly the pattern we need to recognize, Martha responded. True emergencies are rare. Frequent financial crises usually indicate deeper problems that require more than money to solve. Our group developed guidelines that helped members make consistent, thoughtful decisions about financial assistance. First, we established that emergency financial help should address unexpected, unavoidable circumstances, not the consequences of ongoing poor financial management. Second, we agreed that any significant financial assistance should come with clear expectations about financial education, budgeting, or professional counseling. Third, we decided that helping family members should never compromise our own financial security or retirement plans. Fourth, we committed to offering assistance in forms that built independence rather than dependence, paying for education, job training, or professional services rather than simply covering bills. Finally, we agreed to support each other in maintaining these boundaries, especially when family members used emotional manipulation or guilt to pressure us into making unwise financial decisions. The group became a source of strength and wisdom for all of us. We learned that setting financial boundaries actually improved our relationships with family members by creating clearer expectations and reducing resentment on both sides. 2 years after implementing these principles, my relationships with Lisa and Michael were stronger than they had ever been. They both expressed gratitude for the way I had helped them develop financial responsibility rather than simply providing money when they asked for it. Lisa and Tom had completely turned around their financial situation. They had eliminated their credit card debt, built an emergency savings account, and were even planning to buy a small house within their means. Mom, the best gift you gave us wasn't money, Lisa told me during a recent visit. It was refusing to let us avoid dealing with our financial problems. We're so much stronger now. Michael had used the experience with the failed food truck opportunity to educate himself about investing. He enrolled in a personal finance course, started contributing more to his retirement account, and eventually made some small, well-researched investments that performed much better than Dave's scheme. You taught me that real financial success comes from knowledge and discipline, Not luck and shortcuts, he said. My own financial situation remained secure, and I was able to help my children in meaningful ways without compromising my retirement security. I had learned that saying no to inappropriate requests enabled me to say yes to appropriate ones. The support group continued to grow, and we eventually formalized it as a nonprofit organization called Financial Boundaries for Families. We provided workshops, resources, and peer support for older adults navigating complex financial relationships with family members. Martha became the organization's executive director, and I served as the program coordinator. We developed materials that helped people distinguish between helping and enabling, create clear financial boundaries, and maintain loving relationships while protecting their financial security. Our most successful program was the Loving No Workshop, which taught participants how to decline inappropriate financial requests while offering appropriate forms of support. We role-played difficult conversations, shared strategies for managing guilt and manipulation, and connected people with professional resources. The key insight, I would tell workshop participants, is that protecting your financial security isn't selfish, it's responsible. You can't help your family if you become financially vulnerable yourself. We also created support groups for adult children who were learning to manage their finances independently. Many participants reported that their relationships with parents improved once they stopped relying on financial bailouts and started making their own responsible decisions. 5 years after that first crisis call from Lisa, I reflected on how much our family had grown and changed. My children had developed financial skills and confidence they never would have gained if I had simply given them money whenever they asked. I had learned that true generosity sometimes requires saying no to immediate requests in order to provide more meaningful long-term support. I had discovered that financial boundaries actually strengthened family relationships by creating mutual respect and clear expectations. Most importantly, I had found a way to use my life experience and resources to help other families navigate similar challenges. The organization we created had helped hundreds of families establish healthier financial relationships. At 73, I could look back on those difficult decisions with pride rather than regret. I had chosen love over guilt, wisdom over immediate gratification, and long-term solutions over short-term fixes. My savings account remained healthy, my retirement was secure, and my relationships with my children were based on mutual respect rather than financial dependence. I had learned that the most loving thing you can do for family members is help them become financially independent, even if that process is more difficult than simply giving them money. The roses in my garden continued to bloom beautifully, tended with the same patient care I had learned to apply to family relationships. Both required consistent attention, appropriate boundaries, and the wisdom to know when to provide support and when to allow natural growth. Today, when people ask me about handling financial requests from family members, I tell them that learning to say no with love is one of the most important skills an older adult can develop. It protects your financial security, while teaching your loved ones the life skills they need to build their own stability. The strength to say no, I discovered, was actually the power to say yes to what really mattered: independence, respect, and relationships built on mutual support rather than financial dependence. My name is Grace Martinez, and at 73 years old, I've learned that the most generous thing you can do for people you love is help them learn to help themselves. Sometimes that requires the courage to disappoint them temporarily in order to support them permanently. My name is Grace Martinez, and at 73 years old, I've learned that the most generous thing you can do for people you love is help them learn to help themselves. Sometimes that requires the courage to disappoint them temporarily in order to support them permanently. But my journey didn't end there. The success of our Financial Boundaries for Families organization opened doors to opportunities I never could have imagined when I first struggled with Lisa's foreclosure crisis. 3 years after we established the nonprofit, I received a call from Dr. Patricia Chen, a researcher at the State University who was studying financial relationships between generations. Mrs. Martinez, I've been following the work of your organization, and I'm impressed by the practical solutions you've developed. I'd like to invite you to collaborate on a research project that could help families nationwide. Dr. Chen explained that she was leading a comprehensive study on financial boundaries in family relationships, funded by a federal grant from the Department of Health and Human Services. The research aimed to identify best practices for helping older adults maintain financial security while supporting family members appropriately. We need community partners who have real-world experience with these issues. Your organization's approach combines compassion with practical wisdom in ways that could benefit millions of families. The research collaboration transformed our small nonprofit into a regional resource center. We received funding to expand our programs, hire professional staff, and develop materials that could be used by community organizations across the country. My role evolved from volunteer coordinator to research partner, working alongside academics, social workers, and financial planners to document and refine the strategies we had developed through experience. The study revealed that financial boundary issues were far more common than most people realized. Surveys showed that over 60% of adults over 65 had been asked for significant financial help by family members, and nearly 40% reported feeling pressured to provide assistance that compromised their own financial security. Grace, your intuitive approach aligns perfectly with what research shows about effective family financial relationships, Dr. Chen told me during one of our planning meetings. The distinction between helping and enabling, the importance of addressing root causes rather than symptoms, the value of setting clear expectations. These principles are supported by decades of social work and psychology, research, working on the research project, introduced me to families from diverse backgrounds who were facing similar challenges. Through focus groups and interviews, I met grandparents who had depleted their retirement savings trying to help adult children, parents who had compromised their own financial security to support grown children's lifestyle choices, and older adults who felt trapped between their desire to help and their need to protect their financial stability. One particularly moving interview was with Eleanor Washington, a 78-year-old retired teacher whose son had been asking for financial help for over 15 years. I gave him money for everything, Eleanor explained. Car repairs, rent deposits, medical bills, business investments that never worked out. I told myself I was being a good mother, but I was really preventing him from learning to solve his own problems. Eleanor's situation was more extreme than mine had been, but the patterns were identical. Her son had learned to rely on her financial support instead of developing his own problem-solving skills and financial discipline. What changed for you? I asked during our conversation. I ran out of money, she said with a sad smile. I had to choose between giving him more money and having enough for my own expenses. That's when I realized I wasn't helping him, I was hurting both of us. Eleanor's story became one of the case studies in our research, demonstrating how financial boundaries could be established even after years of enabling behavior. With support from our program, she learned to offer emotional support and practical advice to her son while refusing to provide money that would prevent him from developing independence. The research project also connected me with Dr. James Rodriguez, a geriatric psychiatrist who specialized in family dynamics involving older adults. His insights helped me understand the psychological aspects of the challenges I had navigated with Lisa and Michael. Grace, what you discovered through experience aligns with what we know about healthy relationship boundaries, Dr. Rodriguez explained. When older adults set appropriate financial limits, they're not just protecting their money, they're modeling self-respect and teaching their adult children to develop their own capabilities. He helped our organization develop workshops that addressed the emotional aspects of setting financial boundaries, including managing guilt, dealing with manipulation, and maintaining loving relationships while establishing clear limits. These workshops became some of our most popular programs. Many participants reported that learning to manage their emotional responses to financial requests was as important as understanding the practical aspects of financial decision-making. I always felt guilty saying no to my daughter's requests for money, said Maria Santos. A workshop participant, Dr. Rodriguez helped me understand that feeling guilty doesn't mean I'm doing something wrong. It just means I care about my daughter, which is exactly why I need to help her in ways that build her strength rather than her dependence on me. The success of our local programs attracted attention from national organizations. The American Association of Retired Persons, AARP, invited me to speak at their national conference about financial boundaries for older adults. Standing before an audience of 800 people, I shared the story of my journey from enabling Lisa's financial problems to helping her develop independence and stability. The response was overwhelming. Dozens of people approached me afterward to share their own struggles with similar situations. Mrs. Martinez, You've given me hope that it's not too late to change these patterns with my family, said Robert Chen, a 69-year-old man from California. I've been supporting my adult son financially for 12 years, and I was starting to think I'd created a situation I couldn't fix. It's never too late to establish healthy boundaries, I told him. The key is doing it with love and patience, while providing the right kind of support to help your son develop independence. Following the AARP conference, I was invited to speak at similar events across the country. These speaking opportunities allowed me to share our organization's message with thousands of older adults and their families. Each presentation led to connections with local organizations that wanted to establish their own financial boundaries programs. We developed a training curriculum that allowed community centers, senior centers, and family service agencies to offer workshops based on our model. Within 2 years, organizations in 37 states were using our materials to help families navigate financial boundary issues. We created online resources, training videos, and support materials that could be accessed by people who couldn't attend in-person workshops. The expansion of our work also led to media attention. I was interviewed by newspapers, magazines, and radio programs about the importance of financial boundaries in family relationships. One interview that had particular impact was with Sarah Johnson, host of a popular radio program focused on family finances. Grace, your approach seems to go against the conventional wisdom that parents should always help their children in any way they can. How do you respond to critics who say you're encouraging older adults to be selfish with their money? I understand that perspective, Sarah, but I've seen the long-term consequences of financial enabling. When we give money instead of teaching financial skills, when we solve problems instead of helping people learn to solve their own problems, we're actually preventing our loved ones from developing the capabilities they need to be successful. Can you give us an example of what you mean? I shared Lisa and Tom's story, explaining how providing unconditional financial assistance would have prevented them from learning the budgeting and financial planning skills that ultimately saved their financial future. If I had simply given them the $15,000 they initially requested, they would have kept the house they couldn't afford, maintained the spending habits that created their debt, and faced an even worse crisis within a few months. By insisting on conditions and professional guidance, I helped them build a foundation for long-term stability. The radio interview generated hundreds of calls and emails from listeners who were struggling with similar situations. Many had never considered that there might be a difference between helping and enabling, or that setting financial boundaries could actually be an act of love. Our organization's website traffic increased dramatically following the interview, and we received requests from families all over the country for guidance and support. To meet this demand, we developed an online support community where people could share experiences, ask questions, and receive peer support for implementing financial boundaries. The community grew to over 5,000 members within its first year. One of the most active community members was Jennifer Walsh, a 64-year-old woman from Ohio whose adult daughter had been asking for money regularly for 8 years. I found Grace's organization just in time, Jennifer posted in the community forum. I was about to give my daughter another $5,000 for what she claimed was a business opportunity. Instead, I used the principles I learned from the workshops to help her research the opportunity properly. We discovered it was basically a pyramid scheme that would have cost her much, more than $5,000. Jennifer's post generated dozens of responses from other community members who shared similar experiences and offered support and encouragement. The online community became a valuable resource for people who were isolated in their struggles with family financial issues. Many members reported that connecting with others who understood their situations helped them maintain the courage to enforce appropriate boundaries. Dr. Chen's research project continued for 4 years, ultimately producing a comprehensive report on financial boundaries in family relationships that was published by the federal government and distributed to social service agencies nationwide. The research confirmed what we had learned through experience. Families that established clear, loving financial boundaries had stronger relationships, better financial outcomes for all members, and higher levels of satisfaction and respect among family members. Grace, your organization's work has contributed to a significant shift in how professionals think about financial support within families, Dr. Chen told me when the research was completed. You've demonstrated that setting boundaries isn't about withholding love. It's about expressing love in ways that build strength rather than dependence. The research findings led to invitations for me to consult with government agencies, universities, and nonprofit organizations that were developing their own programs to address financial boundary issues. 5 years after the research project began, I found myself serving on the advisory board of the National Center for Financial Family Relationships, a new organization created to coordinate research and programming on these issues nationwide. Grace, you've helped transform how our society thinks about financial relationships between generations, said Dr. Michael Thompson, the center's director. Your combination of practical wisdom, compassionate approach, and commitment to evidence-based solutions has created a model that's being replicated across the country. The work was deeply fulfilling, but it also brought me face-to-face with the reality that financial boundary issues often reflected broader problems in family relationships and society. Through our workshops and community outreach, I met families dealing with addiction, mental health challenges, unemployment, housing instability, and other complex issues that made simple financial solutions inadequate. This realization led our organization to develop partnerships with addiction treatment centers, mental health agencies, job training programs, and housing assistance organizations. We can't address financial boundaries in isolation from other family challenges, Martha observed during one of our staff meetings. Many of the people who come to us need multiple types of support to build stable, independent lives. Our comprehensive approach attracted attention from foundations and government agencies that were looking for effective models for supporting families in crisis. We received significant grants that allowed us to expand our services and develop new programs. One of our most successful innovations was the Family Financial Recovery Program, which provided coordinated support for families dealing with complex financial and personal challenges. The program paired financial counseling with other services like job training, addiction counseling, mental health support, and housing assistance, depending on each family's specific needs. This is the first time anyone has looked at our whole situation, instead of just focusing on one problem at a time, said Carlos Mendez, a program participant whose family had been struggling with unemployment, debt, and housing instability. Carlos and his wife Maria worked with our team for 18 months, during which time Carlos completed a job training program. Maria received treatment for anxiety that had been affecting her ability to work, and both learned budgeting and financial planning skills. The financial boundaries part was actually the easiest once we addressed the other issues, Carlos told me during our final meeting. We needed help with the underlying problems before we could learn to manage money responsibly. The Family Financial Recovery Program became a model for other organizations, and we began training social workers, financial counselors, and community organizers to implement similar comprehensive approaches in their own communities. As our work expanded, I also began to see the need for resources specifically designed for the adult children and family members who were learning to accept financial boundaries and develop independence. Working with Dr. Rodriguez, we developed support groups and educational programs for people who had been financially dependent on family members and were working to become self-sufficient. Many of our participants initially felt angry or abandoned when their parents or grandparents started setting financial boundaries, Dr. Rodriguez explained. But with proper support and education, most came to appreciate that boundaries actually demonstrated love and confidence in their ability to succeed independently. Michael became one of the volunteer facilitators for these support groups, sharing his own experience of initially feeling disappointed by my financial boundaries, but ultimately gaining confidence and skills through the process. My mom's refusal to invest in that food truck scheme saved me from a significant financial loss, he would tell group participants, but more importantly, it motivated me to educate myself about investing and financial planning. I learned skills that have served me much better than any single investment could have. Lisa also became involved in our organization, using her experience to help other families navigate the process of downsizing and budgeting when facing financial crises. The hardest part was accepting that we couldn't afford the lifestyle we wanted, she would explain to workshop participants. But once we made that adjustment, we discovered that a simpler life actually gave us more time together as a family and less stress about money. Both Lisa and Michael reported that their relationships with me had improved significantly after we established clear financial boundaries. The tension and resentment that had sometimes characterized Our interactions around money had been replaced by mutual respect and open communication. I used to dread calling Mom because I was always either asking for money or feeling guilty about money she had given me, Lisa told a support group. Now our conversations are about our lives, our relationships, our dreams, not about financial crises or debts. The transformation in our family relationships became one of the most rewarding aspects of the journey. We had moved from a dynamic based on financial dependence to one based on emotional connection and mutual support. 8 years after that first crisis call from Lisa, our organization had grown from a small support group to a nationally recognized resource center. We had helped thousands of families establish healthier financial relationships, contributed to important research on family dynamics, and influenced policy discussions about support for older adults and their families. But perhaps the most meaningful measure of our success was the stories of individual families who had transformed their relationships and built stronger foundations for their futures. During our organization's annual conference, we always featured a panel of families who had successfully implemented financial boundary principles. The stories were consistently inspiring. 5 years ago, I was enabling my son's gambling addiction by constantly giving him money to cover his debts, shared Patricia Williams during one panel discussion. Learning about financial boundaries gave me the tools to express my love by supporting his recovery instead of supporting his addiction. My daughter and I used to argue about money every time we talked, added Robert Chen, who had attended our first AARP presentation. Now she manages her own finances responsibly, and we have a better relationship than we've had in years. These testimonials reminded me why the work was so important. Financial boundary issues might seem like simple money problems on the surface, but they actually involved fundamental questions about love, respect, independence, and family relationships. As I approached my 78th birthday, I began thinking about transitioning my role in the organization to younger leaders who could carry the work forward. Martha had already taken on most of the day-to-day management responsibilities, and we had developed a strong team of staff and volunteers who shared our commitment to helping families build healthy financial relationships. Grace, you've created something that will continue to help families long after you're ready to step back, Martha told me during one of our planning conversations. The principles you've developed and the programs we've built have become part of how communities think about supporting older adults and their families. The transition process gave me time to reflect on the unexpected journey that had begun with a simple decision to ask questions before giving Lisa money for her mortgage crisis. That decision had led to discoveries about the difference between helping and enabling, the importance of addressing root causes rather than symptoms, and the power of community support in helping families navigate complex challenges. More personally, it had led to a deeper understanding of my role as a mother and grandmother. Instead of trying to protect my children from all financial difficulties, I had learned to support them in ways that built their strength and independence. The journey had also connected me with an extended community of people who shared similar values about family relationships, financial responsibility, and the importance of maintaining dignity and independence at every stage of life. As I prepared to reduce my involvement in the day-to-day operations of the organization, I felt confident that the work would continue. We had trained hundreds of workshop facilitators, developed comprehensive resources that could be used by communities nationwide, and established research partnerships that would continue to refine and improve our understanding of these issues. Most importantly, we had demonstrated that it was possible to help family members without sacrificing financial security, to express love through boundaries rather than enabling, and to build stronger relationships by encouraging independence rather than dependence. My garden continued to flourish under the same principles: careful attention, appropriate support, and the wisdom to know when to provide assistance and when to allow natural growth. The roses I had been tending for decades were more beautiful than ever, a reminder that patient, consistent care produces the most lasting results. The story that began with learning to say no had evolved into a mission of teaching others to say yes to what really mattered: independence, respect, and relationships built on mutual support rather than financial dependence. At 78, I could look back on the journey with satisfaction, knowing that a difficult family situation had been transformed into an opportunity to help thousands of families build stronger, healthier relationships. The strength to say no had indeed become the power to say yes to what really mattered, and that power had multiplied beyond anything. I could have imagined when I first struggled with the decision of whether to give Lisa the money for her mortgage crisis. Did you like my story? Share your thoughts in the comments about your own experiences with family financial boundaries. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe for more stories about navigating family relationships with wisdom and love. Remember, setting boundaries isn't about being mean. It's about being loving in the most effective way possible.